The information contained in this video is strictly for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or other professional advice and is not a substitute for consultation with a qualified professional. The opinions expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect the views of the Center for Continuing Education and Workforce Development, Borough of Manhattan Community College, and the City University of New York. State of Mind is a web-based discussion program that explores the relevant social, economic, and political issues that are prominent at the post-secondary level of education. State of Mind is sponsored by the Center for Continuing Education and Workforce Development at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. BMCC. Start here, go anywhere. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Krishna C. Nadella, and this is State of Mind. We're taping from the Leadership Fellows Program at Borough of Manhattan Community College. The goal of the Leadership Fellows Program is to prepare prospective leaders to assume senior management positions. This year's program will focus on leading from the middle and the role which participants play in ensuring the success of the college and that of the people they supervise. With that said, we're kicking off a three-part series covering the future of community college education. The growing importance of community colleges will require future leaders to think globally and to formulate innovative solutions to problems. The development and availability of well-prepared leaders capable of responding to these emerging trends is vital to the continued success of BMCC and its students. Within the next decade, BMCC will need to cultivate, develop, and empower the next generation of leaders for success in this changing environment. With us here today to help provide their perspectives on the topic are the following guests. To my immediate left is Dr. Cynthia Bioteau, who is the 5th president and first female CEO of Florida State College at Jacksonville. Dr. Bioteau served as the president and CEO of Salt Lake Community College in Salt Lake City, Utah, from 2005 to 2014. SLCC, which is similar in size and complexity to FSCJ, has more than 62,000 students and has 13 campuses and sites. Dr. Bioteau brings more than 35 years of experience in education, mental health, and business, and strong leadership as evidenced by her many accomplishments, community-based awards, recognitions, and professional affiliations. She holds a doctorate in educational studies from Lesley University, a master's degree in special education from Assumption College, and a bachelor's degree in special education from the University of New Hampshire. To Dr. Bioteau's immediate left is our very own Dr. Antonio Pérez, president of Borough of Manhattan Community College since 1995. Dr. Pérez is a visionary, high-energy leader with 23 years of experience as a chief executive officer. Since coming to BMCC, he has dedicated himself to making the institution one that is recognized nationally for excellence in teaching, learning, scholarship, and service to students and to the community at large. Since the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center that destroyed one of BMCC's educational facilities, Dr. Pérez has spoken widely on leadership. His speeches have addressed such topics as the characteristics of a good leader to crisis and emergency management at the college level. Dr. Pérez earned his doctorate in education from State University of New York at Albany, and in honor and recognition of his distinguished service to higher education, he was awarded an honorary doctorate in humane letters by his alma mater, the State University of New York at Oneonta. And finally, Dr. Joe May is the 7th Chancellor of the Dallas County Community College District and assumed his duties in late February of 2014. As the first member of his family to attend college, the Chancellor realized the profound impact that higher education had not only on his life, but also on society in general. This background inspired Dr. May to help start and then to become the founding member of Rebuilding America's Middle Class, a national consortium of community colleges that is dedicated to ensuring everyone has the opportunity to pursue the American dream. A native of East Texas, Dr. May earned his doctorate in education from Texas A&M Commerce. He holds Master of Education and Bachelor of Science degrees from Stephen F. Austin State University. Dr. Bioteau, Dr. Pérez, Dr. May, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to start off our conversation on the topic of leadership. And this is something that I think all three of you are more than well qualified to speak to. Now, it is said, one of the largest challenges facing community colleges in the 21st century is identifying leaders who possess the necessary skills and competencies to successfully navigate the modern presidency. Facing a dynamic shift in the fiscal landscape, community college presidents are tasked with filling the gap between institutional needs and existing forms of financial support. With that said, I'd like to start with you, Dr. Pérez. please indicate what you feel are the important skills the next generation of college presidents and senior administrators will need to possess in order to successfully lead their institutions, and how will these qualities differ from those of current presidents?
Well, Krishna, it's really a vital and really concerning question, because the environment has changed. Not only has higher education changed, but the students that we're serving. And if we look at what we were doing in the past as it relates to trying to respond to prospective needs, there were needs that we projected as an economy, as educators, but now we have a clientele that's steadily changing. And if we look at Generation Z, which they call it now, they're coming through our doors. They'll be our freshmen. They're different, and we can no longer just assume that we can do what we've been doing in years past and think that we're going to address their needs. So it's really the nimbleness of an institution to look at its prospective students and be prepared to respond to their needs as it relates to the needs of society. So I think the nimbleness part is a concern that I have, and how do we respond to that and prepare for this next generation of students. I believe that higher education will be changing dramatically in the next 15 to 20 years. And the acceptance of doing things the way we've been doing them before is something that troubles me, because in education we're often cited for being slow in moving and not being very agile. And the institutions in higher education that are the most agile respond to the needs of the society, and it's changing students. And these students are changing dramatically from those that we've experienced with in years past, so that the nimbleness of an institution, its ability to assess what will be needed by the society and the community are key issues that need to be addressed.
Dr. May, I saw you nodding your head a few times. Would you like to comment?
Well, just to pick up on what Tony was talking about, I think particularly that we need leaders today that take an outside-in point of view. We often say that our colleges have no needs. Individuals have needs, employers have needs, our communities have needs, and we're really fortunate to be the institutions that can bring those together to solve the problems of individuals, to help employers get the skilled workforce they need, and to really address the needs of our community and help grow strong communities. And for that, we need leaders that really understand that a big part of their role is not just the understanding of the college, but it's an understanding of the community. It's the ability to bring that into the institution and to be able to have the skills to understand how to use the resources that we've been provided. Throughout most of our existing community colleges have been important, but today they're really essential. The route to the middle class is going to be through the doors, for most people, through the doors of community colleges. And so as we have leaders, we really have to look at the pipeline differently than we have in the past. We need to look at the needs of employers in a very different way than we have historically. And as Dr. Pérez was saying, we've seen really a dramatic shift occur over the last really 5 to 8 years in terms of more and more individuals are counting on us and employers are counting on us to meet the needs. So if we look at individuals coming into leadership roles that have a passion for the needs of others and bringing that into the institution, that are competent, that they know how to really take the knowledge of what we do as an institution and the resources and use them to solve those problems, and they can do it with focus in such a way that we're able to continually move forward, constantly adapting as we see the needs of students change, as we see the needs of communities change, and the needs of our employers continue to grow and need us in very different ways.
Actually, so taking that topic of community involvement and the sheer number of students that walk into any community college, Dr. Bioteau, I'd like to throw you on the spot here. What are the similarities, if any, from a leadership standpoint between a community college president and the CEO of a Fortune 500 company?
I think they are very similar because, quite frankly, CEOs of all institutions of higher ed, be they colleges or universities, must look very entrepreneurially at what is being requested, what is being needed for, as my two colleagues have alluded to, the importance of responsiveness to our employers, the business community, but also the responsiveness of a global society that we live in. Disruption has occurred in many of the industries in our country. We think about advanced manufacturing, think about financial services, the housing, healthcare. All of those industries have experienced disruption, and now on the other side of that look very differently than what they did going into it. I dare say and challenge all of us as leaders in higher ed today to understand that we are in the midst of disruption for our industry. And disruption means the way we have understood higher ed in the past will look very differently. And I wouldn't give it the 10 to 15 years that Dr. Pérez said. I would give it 5 years. 5 years from now, if we were to sit here and have the same conversation, the way higher ed, the way colleges provide for educational opportunities will be very, very different than how we do now. The open access, the prior learning, the military experience, the on-time, online, the MOOCs, the globalization of expectations, not only of our students coming in, and by the way, the ease within which our incoming students utilize technology for their interaction and engagement has leveled the playing field for us who might be more seasoned as administrators, thinking that there was a hierarchy. There is no hierarchy anymore. Students, faculty, staff, employers feel that through technology they can access a CEO anytime, for any reason, and expect a direct response. And so all of those issues, along with the disruption and needing to be responsive in a new age of new skill sets, creates the need for leaders of higher ed to be entrepreneurial, risk takers, creative thinkers, and also accountable managers fiscally.
So let's talk about the future, because I think we're all seeing that things are changing very quickly. On the topic of succession planning, as a follow-up to the question I asked previously, the American community college system is in the midst of a leadership crisis, which has been further exacerbated by the lack of qualified candidates to replace the retiring presidents and senior administrators. What challenges have each of you faced, and I'll start with you, Dr. Bioteau, at your respective institutions with regards to succession planning, and what strategies have you developed to address this problem?
Well, I think the reality check, first and foremost, is not everyone wants to be a president or a chancellor, understanding it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week experience. So add to that generational engagement with workforce. And by that I mean many of our students come into the workforce, they graduate from us and go into the workforce, having a different mindset of they don't live to work as our generation did. I observe they work so that they can live the lifestyle that they want. And so that's the first issue, that not everyone wants to be an advanced leader. Add to that, each of us in our roles must be a talent scout. I think we have a responsibility to always be looking around us and seeing those bright spots, those bright stars that might not even imagine at this point in time that they can too be a senior leader, and to help nurture those students, those employees towards not only serving students, but thinking more advanced in their career pathway. And then having leadership opportunities such as this, having mentoring, having the opportunities to taste while it's still safe with what they know. Leadership is a very, very critical need for a vital institution. And yet leadership will take its forms based on the needs of the community and the institution and the people that engage with it.
Dr. Pérez, on the topic of succession planning, when you think about the BMCC and your own practical day-to-day aspects of it, where is the opportunity to make mistakes for future leaders? How do they get the chance to learn from mistakes when you're evaluating talent as a talent scout, as Dr. Bioteau says, which shows you that ability to think outside of the box, but at the same time allows you to see that this is someone that wants to step up and have the opportunity?
It's interesting you asked that question, Krishna, because our leadership program for this year is really looking at individuals that are kind of in the middle, not necessarily near the top, right. To begin to give them the opportunities to explore what career opportunities might be available to them, so that then we are, in essence, trying to do some succession planning and trying to give them an experience and an opportunity to see what might be available if they're interested. So that I believe that we need to start at an early stage, but I'm also committed to looking more broadly, and technology has allowed us to do this. So that I find, for example, using LinkedIn has been a vehicle that has broadened our opportunity to explore where there might be individuals that we may not have seen. So we're really looking at technology and kind of shrinking that globe a little bit in a national level so that we're in contact with individuals that we want to hire and work here. We're nurturing and working with those that are here, but realizing that there may be a gap between middle management and senior level that we need to enhance that as well. So that technology is something that we feel we can take advantage of and begin to tell our story and interest individuals to come to our institution. But I believe that every institution has to invest in those that are there because there are some stars, and you need to be able to see where those shining stars are and give them that opportunity.
Speaking of shining stars, Dr. May, you just took on your job in February of this past year. Do you start the succession planning now?
Well, absolutely. You know, I guess as a leader in higher education, it's not just about our institution. It's really about leadership in general as we look at meeting the need. And I think one of the couple of things, as Dr. Pérez mentioned earlier, we see Generation Z coming into our institutions. We'll start thinking right now, in fact, about who are the potential leaders that we can begin to recognize within our own student body as we look down the road. So we're very intentional about that, and frankly, encouraging them to consider us at some point in the future when they are looking at going to work. But I want to key off of something else you asked. I do think that the ability to take risk is one of the most important characteristics of leaders, and I think it's harder today than ever. I think between everything that a leader does gets second-guessed by someone, and it's out on social media, it can be on the internet, and it really takes courage to take that step forward. But without it, you know, I was fortunate, and I suspect our colleagues here were too, that I was allowed to make mistakes, and frankly, I made more than most along the way, and which allowed me to really learn from those and to grow and to benefit from that. So I think within our succession planning, as we look at the environment, we really have to create a culture where getting out, frankly, talking about an issue, a challenge, a problem is okay. Looking at alternative solutions is okay, and really encouraging people to move forward and celebrating those times when it doesn't work out as we want it to. I think that leaders want to make a difference, right. And they get discouraged when they feel like, well, everything's so rigid and in a box that I can't really do some of the things that are going to allow me to solve a problem or to address an issue. And what we have to do is really find a way to foster that within our organizations as one of the key elements of really planning for the future.
Right. So when I'm looking at all three of you, you all sit in very high positions. The question of is there a risk taker in every one of you, I think, is pretty rhetorical. I think there has to be that sense of it. But let's talk about making the tough decisions during the tough times. And I'd like to start with you, Dr. Bioteau. You may not necessarily have had anything that has been so earth-shattering in your career, but if you have, what is it that you felt separated you from your colleagues to be able to make those tough decisions? Because you are in charge of a large institution, a large corporation, that requires you to make a decision, whether it's right or wrong, but one that the university will move forward with.
I think that's where the professional development leading to a CEO position is critical, because you need to take practice steps before you get into a CEO position where there will be tough decisions, if not on a daily basis, on a very regular basis. And the tough decisions can be gut-wrenching because the majority of those decisions are usually involving personnel and human beings. Whenever you're dealing with human beings, there is no more difficult or critical decision that you can make. How do you make those decisions? I will never, ever make a decision in a vacuum or by myself. And part of being a successful CEO, I believe, is surrounding yourself with people who think differently from you, who have perspectives of life experiences that cause them to think in broader and unique terms, and that can bring all pieces, or as many pieces, of a mosaic of a decision forward to inform, to guide, and to advise. In the end, you know that you have to make the final call, and it does take courage, as my colleagues have said. But that's, if you yourself do not show courage, then you I believe, are not the leader that people assume you to be.
That's well put. I appreciate that. Dr. Pérez, Dr. May?
Well, with me, there's something that I follow in my mind when I have to make those critical decisions, and that's that you should never compromise the future for an easier present. And it's very difficult to do that. It's easy to ignore. It's easy to let things slide. But at the end of the day, the decisions have to be made. And it's not often, that's probably the most difficult part of the job, is when you have to correct individuals or have discussions about separation from the institution. Those things, they take a little bit out of all of us because we're human. But I think the responsibility that we have undertaken to be fair-minded and to make the best decisions for the institution and the students especially are the ones that really are the tenet of why we do what we do. But I think the aspect of never compromising the future for an easier present is something that I keep on reminding myself about when I have tough decisions to make.
Dr. May, any final thoughts on this topic?
You know, I think any time we do make those really tough decisions that we know individuals are not going to agree with in all cases, it's always important to start with why. And if you really begin by focusing on the why this is important, then when you talk about what it is you're going to do, you're well grounded, and people can understand that. Don't assume that people automatically connect the dots. And so I think as long as I'm always willing to sit back, take the time, explain why this matters, why it's important to me, why I believe it's the right decision to go. Now, you can't do it publicly in all cases because you're involving people and other issues. But I think as leaders, we have to be able to answer that question first.
Excellent. On that note, that'll wrap up our show for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us and offering their very unique perspectives. If you like what you saw in today's show, please feel free to reach out to me via email or Twitter. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, every life is a book. Make yours a bestseller. Have a good night.